remember the last time I had talked to you about going and seeing Dr. Lair, the thymus guru in Indy? Well, after that, I got really frustrated and confused because that peace that I had had before, it was like it was gone, and fear and confusion just kind of like enveloped around me. And I want to share with you that on July the 30th, God gave me what we call a Godcidence. That's what we use at our church. I don't believe there's such a thing as a coincidence. I believe God ordains our steps, and He gave me a very special Godcidence that day. I was full of this fear and confusion, and I just happened to look at Facebook, and Daniel and Kelly Magnus were sharing for like 26 minutes, and 6 minutes before they were done is when I happened to pop in. And Kelly had this, undescribable look on her face of just like she was really burdened for something or somebody. And she explained that someone out there was desperate. And the way she described that person was how I had been feeling. And so she prayed for that person. And I praise God after she got done praying, that burden and confusion just lifted. And I felt peace again. I also recognized that, I was responding to internal emotion because I didn't know what the future held. Honestly, everybody has no clue what the future holds. But when you go through a cancer trial, that makes it scary. And so I was struggling to be strong in God, yet I knew He was my only answer. He is my rock. Well, the end of July, 1st of August, I ended up, going to my daughter's for 4 or 5 days. She's a school teacher, needed help to set up her classroom, and just getting away really helped. But on my way there, it's like a 3.5, 4 hour drive, and I get sleepy driving. So a lot of times I'll call somebody and talk to keep me awake. And I decided to call Pam Holzinger, who I had not talked to maybe in over a year. I hadn't seen her in years, and just decided to call and see how she was doing. And she told me that on June 24th, she actually had a dream about me and her. And I was in a car, I was driving, and it was like we were on sand. And there was a hill, and I would push the car through the hill. And when I did that, she just felt the push in her being also. And when I would push through the hill, the sand would just fly in the air, and it was like fireworks that turned into rainbows. And this happened 3 different times. And then after that, I pulled the car off into a grassy spot, and 2 brilliant white dogs appeared. One was small and one was big. And they just wanted us to pet them and to love on them. Now, I know that God will give us dreams to speak to us sometimes. And so I prayed and I asked Him, what's this mean? I wanted an interpretation. And I believe that first hill was when I found out the news that the cancer had returned. And, I was pushing through those facts. And God was giving me hope as I was pushing through that hill. The second one, I believe, was when fear and that uncertainty tried to consume me, and I'm pushing through it. And then God gave me another rainbow. The third one, I don't believe has happened yet. You remember, my 17-year-old granddaughter is praying for a miracle that the doctors can't explain, and it baffles them through circumstances. And I believe that third hill, it hasn't happened, but I'm going to push through it. When I get that undescribable miracle that is just going to baffle the medical world. I'm not sure what the dogs meant. But as I went to my daughter's, they had a women's conference. And I tell you, that was another Godcidence. It really spoke to me. There was the speakers. It was like it just kept pouring life and life into me. And my daughter knew that there was a couple women at her church that could interpret dreams. And so after the seminar, she pulled the two women over to talk to me. But before they ministered to anybody, they always ask, do you have any unforgiveness? And I had unforgiveness I had been dealing with, and I had prayed and tried to ask God to give it, get rid of it. But I still felt this knot deep inside of me. And so those two women prayed that those chains of generational curses and whatever was binding me would be gone. And I, praise God, after they prayed, I had a freedom. That knot that was in me, it was gone. I had a freedom that I felt like I did the day I got saved. It was so exciting. Well, then one of the ladies stuck around, and I was able to share the dream with her. And she agreed that the interpretation of the hills, she totally agreed with that. But she wasn't, and she also said that rainbows represent God's promise. So that was encouraging to me. She wasn't sure what the dogs represented, but she said that white is something good. So maybe that white was representing the fear going away. I don't know for sure. Maybe someday I will totally understand it. But I will say, I was going through a lot of emotion prior to this. In fact, in July, I had at least 2 ocular migraines. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's like you're looking ahead and you just see kind of like, lightning flashing out here, and it can interfere with your vision. It's scary. And after the second one, I called the doctor, the eye doctor, and he goes, give it 30 minutes. You're under stress. It's stress-induced. It'll go away. And I had several years ago when I was going through chemo treatment before, but I hadn't even started treatment, and it kind of scared me. But sure enough, within 30 minutes, it had gone away. But it was evidence of the fear, the turmoil, the whatever my body was going through. But I recognized the enemy, had really been trying hard to defeat me. And with this fear and uncertainty, but I knew I needed to dig into God more, because He's my only hope. He's my strength. And remember, it's now February 25, but I'm talking about what happened back in July and August of 24. I'm now retired, and I'm telling you, it makes such a difference to have time in the morning to spend with God, to just let Him speak to me through the Word, through music, through a devotional. And that stress I had been living, retirement's good. And I feel that peace, but I now have more time to spend with God, and it's making a difference. So I know, I need to just dig into God more. I know God was allowing all of this for His purpose, and He's going to walk through with me through it all. But I must focus on His promises instead of allowing the enemy to come in and make me fearful and get me confused. Get my eyes off of what the Word says. And I just got to praise and worship God and let Him walk me through this. In August of 2024, I began taking chemo pills called Godcidence. I have a hard time saying that. I took 4 pills in the morning, 4 pills at night, 1 week on, 1 week off, and they had to be like within 12 hours of each other, and it could be 1 hour either way, but I had to be very consistent, so I had to set my alarm, and I'm telling you, there have been multiple times I'm doing something, watching TV or in the middle of an activity, totally forget I have to take my medicine. So I'm grateful that I set my alarm in order to take and remind me. In the beginning though, I don't know. I don't know what adjective to use to explain how I felt. The information that came with the chemo pills said, let's say you were to give me the pills, you had to put gloves on. You were not allowed to touch the chemo pills or it might physically hurt you. Okay, and I'm putting this in my body. I really had a hard time with that. So, like, I would take the pill bottle they gave me, which surprisingly does not have a safety cap on it. And I would lay out a paper towel, and I got pill containers that have like every day that you can take out, Monday through Sunday, and it'll have morning and afternoon. I will take that out, open it up, take the pill container, and try to dump the correct amount in, and then back and forth. But I have not touched a single pill since I started. Another thing that I did, because I might not be home when it's time to take it, and I found a container like this that you've got a key, and so I bought little baggies that I put the chemo in, seal it, put the baggie in the container, and then I lock it, and that way my little grandkids can't accidentally get into it. So initially every 2 weeks, the pills come from Walgreens in Indy. Every 2 weeks I get a call, and we would discuss how things are going, and then they would FedEx it to me. Now that we've got more of a routine, they will send me a month's worth of it. But initially it was 4 pills, morning, night, 1 week on, 1 week off. And as far as side effects, initially I had some indigestion, so I began to take probiotics on a regular basis, and I don't have that problem anymore. I had indigestion, I had tongue tingling, where like I'd wake up and it would tingle a little bit, and then after a few minutes it'd go away. But I had that repeatedly a little bit. But the main side effect I had is called hand and foot syndrome, where your the palms turn red and get dry. The feet, your soles turn red. Like where my foot was, you could just literally see a red line around it. And when I would go to take steps, every step sometimes was just very, very painful. And they would dry, and they told me to use a lotion that would have the ingredient urea, U-R-E-A. And that really did help. But after using the chemo pills for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times, I was walking from a parking lot into a store one day, and I'm like, I can't keep doing this. So I called the doctor to see if I could take and get a handicap sticker so that I could park closer and it wouldn't hurt as bad. Well, my oncologist was out of the office on vacation. The on-call oncologist said he wasn't going to deal with that. I needed to wait till my regular one got back. And so he told me to just go off of it. So I was off for about 10 days. And then when my regular oncologist came back, he told me, go ahead and continue taking it, but write down daily my symptoms. And so shortly after that, I had to have another CAT scan, And on November 4th, I had an appointment with Dr. Lair. Now, one great thing with him, he's in Indy. Back in July or August, I went to his office, but he will take and do, it's supposed to be computer visits, virtual visit, but he doesn't know how to do it on the computer. So he'll just call me and we'll talk about it. And praise God, in November, it showed that the CAT scan, that the cancer was shrinking. That was great news. So he suggested backing it up to 3 pills in the morning, 3 pills at night, instead of the 4. And once I did that, the hand and foot syndrome began to go away. There were several weeks where the feet were still really, like, I could almost peel some skin off, but I don't have any problem with that anymore. I don't have the redness in the hands or the feet like I was, and not in the pain. So that was good. And then January of 2025, you see, every 2 to 3 months I have to have a CAT scan. So I had another CAT scan and another visit with Dr. Lair. And when I read the report, it said negative. And I'm thinking, woohoo, the cancer's gone. But when I met with Dr. Lair, he actually literally looked at the CAT scan, not just the report. And he said it had shrunk. So that was good. But I was a little confused why he's saying it shrunk when the wording said negative. But anyhow, my local oncologist, who I saw after that, he helped explain that if it's under 1 centimeter, the report may say negative. But regardless, praise God, it's shrinking. Now, how long do I have to be on this chemo pill? Dr. Lair recommends 6 months to a year. My local oncologist recommends a year. And after that time, then I can go on what Dr. Lair calls a holiday. And so as long as the chemo pill is shrinking it, we want to continue to stay on it. But hopefully after a year, maybe it won't show up on a CAT scan anymore. And at that point, I have the choice of continuing it or going off of it. And if I go off of it, I'm sure I will still have routine CAT scans and blood work to keep checking on how I'm physically doing. And if it would come back, then they might put me back on capecitabine, or they might do something else. But in the meantime, I have met a new friend who had cancer that basically was a life sentence, and she refused to use chemo. She learned of how, I think it's the Japanese, use lemongrass tea. And now when you're on chemo, you can't use natural stuff because it will make it less effective. And my local oncologist is more into natural stuff, but he can't tell me to do that or he could get sued and then be in trouble. So what the plan is, I'm hoping by August of 2025 approximately, that the cancer will have shrunk enough I can stop the chemo, but then I want to start doing the lemongrass and believe that God will take and totally heal it good forever. And the cool thing though is the local oncologist, I talked to him about this. He can't tell me go ahead and do it, but he did say if I choose to do that, I can come back to him for blood work in order to just be able to monitor me. So that's what I'm hoping to do, but I praise God. I feel great. And you know what? I have no sign, no symptoms that I even have that the cancer's come back. The only way that I knew it did is because of the CAT scan. But I praise God, I have absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. Once in a while, I might get a little tired, which is a symptom. But excuse me, I'm getting old, and sometimes, I may be overwork or whatever. Plus, I also, the routine of transitioning into retirement, I'm not sitting on my butt all day. I'm actually cleaning and doing stuff. So I am more active, which could make me tireder, but I'm basically here to say, praise God, the cancer is shrinking. I have no side effects from the chemo, and I am just trusting that God continues to heal me, continues to give me opportunities to minister for Him, to share encouragement for others of how to go through journeys, of trials and health issues. But at this point, I'm doing great. And next time, I'm going to take another little turn, and I want to share with you, God has really taught me a lot through my first cancer journey, and now through this. The second time, He has really cemented in my spirit some life-changing encouragement about how to go through trials. And I want to share that with you next time.